The 35mm 1.4 Mark 1. I guess we're still talking about the Mark 1. And
Yeah,
now
the
the
Mark
Mark 2 has been
One.
out for a while, but it still has really great character. I mean, I
Having owned both of them, I feel like the Mark One has its own specialties, and Mark Two has its own strengths. You know, they're both fantastic lenses, and they both give you a great rendering that you would be proud to show off. I'm sure.
Yeah, like most Canon EF lenses from the 90s, this lens is not crazy sharp at 1.4. You kind of buy it and then stop it down to f2 for a lot of stuff. If you kind of want an artsier look with more character, maybe stop it down to f1.4. But if you're shooting EF mount in 2020, it's still a really great option and not.
And a lot of the
Yeah.
times, if I shoot it at 1.4, I will still kind of get back. I won't do minimum focus distance at all, and it'll still work out great as like
Yeah,
an
right.
environmental portrait or something like a little wider. I mean, 35 gives you a lot of real estate to work with for your composition and just your overall image.
Yeah, if you don't want to spend crazy amounts of money on the 35mm Mark II and you're not shooting like a high megapixel body, this is still a great option in
Yeah,
2020. I
totally.
can still see people scooping this lens up who are on EF mount.
Yeah, you could probably pick this thing up on the used market for a reasonable amount here in 2020.
Yeah, yeah, and again, it's wider, it's cheaper, and unless you're shooting like the 50 megapixel 5DSR or something, then
Yeah.
you're gonna lose a little bit of corner sharpness. But some people want character and lightness
Yeah, I think
over.
that's part of the
Um,
reason that they had to update too, is because they were going to these faster or these larger megapixel cameras like the 5DSR had come out, and like they just needed to resolve more than maybe what the Mark One could resolve.
Yeah, I mean the Sigma Art Series came out, and people were kind of enamored by it, and so
Yeah, just geeking out about the
yeah,
sharpness
that's
of
why
it.
the Mark II came out. But this is still a really great lens. I mean, I would shoot this over the Sigma
Oh, for sure.
Art 35.
Well, actually, that's kind of a tricky thing because I've owned both of those lenses as well, and I owned them at the same time before there was a Mark II. And I ended up owning the Sigma for longer because I liked the sharpness of it, but I felt like the colors and the renderings from the Canon version's better, and it plays a lot nicer if you already have a lot of Canon gear.
Yeah, it's not all about sharpness, and if you're not all about sharpness, then this lens might be for you.
All right, so this here is a shot that I did with the 35 Mark One. I converted this to black and white in post, obviously. Um, you can see like this was definitely shot wide open, and you can see the amount of bokeh fall off you get. Like it's significant, like just from the hands to the other hands. Like you can see the shallower depth of field. So like if you get really close with this kind of lens, you can make pretty cool detail shots like this that have like an artistic rendering, but it's still nice smooth bokeh and stuff. This shot here, I shot a little wider, and I didn't shoot this wide open, obviously. I kind of wanted you to see the train station a little more, and I did a lot of stuff in post kind of to bring back some sky and to kind of tinker with the building and stuff, because I wanted it to have like an old like 30s kind of feel, because that's what my clients kind of like. They were more drawn to that kind of imagery, and they really like that time period and stuff. So I tried to make it look really kind of classic and romantic, but the 35mm lens really gives you a lot of composition to work with, and yeah, I really like this photo. Oh, here's another one. This one you can kind of see where the flare is, and you can see like if you shoot right into like a really bright source like the sun, like this was probably like 3 or 4 in the afternoon when the sun is just beating right down on the back of them. It still holds it pretty well. There's still a lot of detail in here, even though there's obviously a lot of flaring. And that's one of my favorite parts about this lens, is it can get like a vintage kind of cool look, but still have autofocus.
Yeah, it's not crazy sharp. As you can see in most of these images, right? And it does have a lot of nice character, though, and the colors are good. So if character and colors matter to you, then you might want to get this over like a sharper lens. There's many sharper lenses than this one.
Indeed.
And yeah, again, it's not super heavy to carry and stuff, but yeah, this is a shot that I shot quite a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I swear I know English. Okay, pick up my English here. All right, so basically the sharpness does fall off around the corners, which you can see in this image specifically. And yeah, if you kind of just look around, I mean, that's basically where you lose the sharpness. But if you're looking to frame people in the very bottom corner, that's you might want to consider like a sharper lens. That's going to be sharper in the corners, but in the middle there, it looks very good. The flare control on this lens is okay. It's not anything that impressive, but it does have an artistic rendering. So again, this lens is kind of artsy more than technically good. And if that's something you're into, then you're really going to like it. But if you're looking for the newest and latest spec'd out stuff for your high megapixel camera, then I would say away from this lens. What do you
No,
think?
I think that's really true, and I think that it does give a vintage look, and it has those really pretty flares. So it kind of that's what I like about this lens is it gives me kind of an old world feel coming out in the '90s, but it's still I can autofocus. Like a lot of the lenses that I own that are art lenses that can flare like that are manual focus lenses, which are more cumbersome to use, and this is still very usable in 2020. I could imagine myself using this thing and still being very happy.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of comes down to how much better do you really need a lens? Like does this like lens from 1998 hold you back in any way? Most likely not.
Probably not.
But yeah, I mean, if you want the newest and best, I recommend the 35 millimeter Mark II for the EF mount. But again, that's like one of Canon's best lenses, and it's like I think it's almost $2,000. So
yeah, significantly more
yeah,
expensive.
but again, like if you want to buy this lens instead, you're gonna get a couple of upgrades in weight and in size. So if you don't want to carry around this big 35 millimeter with like blue crazy organic optics or whatever or whatever the marketing term that they said for that one, then this one's a lot more simple and it still has a great artistic rendering.
Yeah, you won't really be disappointed if you have this thing in your collection.
There are probably hundreds of thousands of photographers who have taken great images on this, and if you can't do it, it's not the gear, it's you.